Final hour OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Gord Miller. So Phil Mickelson has issued a statement.
He has.
Yeah, because this new book was coming out, right? And it's quite something. It's quite something. The book is it Billy Walters, I believe is his name?
Yeah.
And Billy's been in some trouble, like some legal issues. Billy's pretty famous, I think, down in Vegas, connected guy. And I guess he and Phil Mickelson have had a long-standing relationship. I think it's fallen out, and this probably isn't going to help because Billy's written a book, and within it details a lot of what he understands Phil was up to in terms of gambling, including an allegation that Phil Mickelson tried to gamble on the Americans winning the 2012 Ryder Cup.
So here, but
he was on the team.
Yeah, before that, he says that Mickelson bet over $1 billion.
Yes.
And tried to bet on the 2012 Ryder Cup.
Yes.
Which Mickelson says, I never bet the Ryder Cup. Not the $1 billion part.
No, well, that's the best part about the refuting. And Phil admits that he had real issues with gambling.
Yeah.
Like if you're betting upwards of $1 billion, one, it says something about how much Phil's worth. But we're talking massive bets.
Right.
Like you're putting $100,000 on a game, $200,000 on a game. That's a massive sweat. I don't care how much money you have. That's a huge sweat. And like this guy was putting hundreds of bets on the line over the course of 2010 through 2014. But the allegation that Phil wanted to bet on the Americans, Phil has responded by saying, quote, I never bet on the Ryder Cup. While it is well known that I always enjoy a friendly wager on the course, I would never undermine the integrity of the game. I have also been very open about my gambling addiction. I have previously conveyed my remorse, took responsibility, have gotten help, have been fully committed to therapy that has positively impacted me, and I feel good about where I am now, end quote. Phil did not say he never tried to bet on the Ryder Cup, but that he never bet on the Ryder Cup. There's a big distinction there.
Because Billy Walters says that he thought it smelled bad. Because he said Mickelson wanted him to put the money down on it.
On behalf of Phil, on the Americans beating the Europeans.
And Walters thought that could be bad optically.
Well, yes. I mean, there's a Pete Rose element to this, isn't there? Well, now, again, Phil would say, I'm betting on my own team to win, but that's what Pete Rose said.
Right.
Pete said he never bet against the Reds. He always bet on the Reds to win. But some of the stuff that's coming out, the details of what Mickelson was up to. Well, and you hear all these different stories about what he was doing during rounds. And, like, this guy was playing for massive money at massive tournaments.
Yeah,
and was betting if he'd hit a 15-foot putt with Gary McCord.
Yeah, I think, he had an addiction.
Yes, a significant one if you're betting that amount of time.
So I think if you were addicted to alcohol or if you were addicted to drugs, I don't think people would make fun of you.
Well, no, I understand what you're saying, but it's not. There's a line between like an addiction that goes overboard and talking about this guy betting on if he's going to hit a 15-foot putt.
Oh, I mean,
or like because again, he's saying he had an addiction and now he's changed. But there was a clip that came out this week. We have the clip. Why don't we play it? Where he was taking on Bryson DeChambeau, and Phil had a partner, and he was taking on Bryson and his partner. All right? And you listen to this, and you tell me if Phil has overcome his gambling addiction.
What are we playing for?
What are we playing for? I haven't thought about that.
What do you mean you haven't thought about it?
Well,
what were you thinking about? Okay, well, Cameron and I will play, you guys. You and Honor Bond. We'll play 9 holes for a G.
Perfect.
Straight best ball.
Perfect.
And when you're closed out, you can press for half.
Not the full?
Not the full.
Okay.
So you got to win the match to win. Yeah, and if you want, what we'll do is we'll go 28. If you shoot 28 best ball, it's double.
Perfect. I love that.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Or better, 28 or better.
So what I'm fascinated by is DeChambeau has no idea what's going on. You can tell he's just like, yep, okay, perfect, yep, perfect. Like, he doesn't want to say no to Phil. And Phil is flabbergasted that DeChambeau would ever think of playing a match without money on the line. Like, that's just a completely different mentality. Now, betting $1,000 for Phil is nothing.
So if you don't,
and betting $1,000 for Bryson is nothing.
No, I gamble. I have gambled for a long time, and I enjoy it, and I like to think that I've managed it. But I know, I've worked with people who have gambling issues, who will literally bet on anything, like first bag off the carousel. They're all over it.
Yeah,
you know,
if there's action out there, it's like oxygen. You got to have it.
It's endless. It's like,
well, and again, Phil is still a very successful guy. Like the famous Barkley saying, I'm going to butcher it, but something along the lines of like, gambling's not an issue if you're rich.
If you can afford it.
If you can afford it, it's not an issue for you. You know, he says it in a different way that lands better than that. But basically what Barkley's saying is, if I lose, I lose. It's not going to affect my life. Now, Phil, it sounds like it really affected his life.
Well, it would.
Yeah. I mean, if you're betting that amount of money and and the constant action, it's always hanging over you.
The anxiety of it, right?
Yeah. But I think there's a separation between that, the real life, wow, that's crazy what was going on, and not necessarily making fun of, but making light of or understanding there's an entertainment value to listening to Phil dance around Bryson about what kind of cash is going to be on the line for a match. Do you disagree with that?
No, I just think that there was a time when he was mocked about the gambling, and when galleries.
Well, I think people are in awe of it.
People in galleries would say, bet you lost that one, Phil. Like he'd get heckled about it.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that I guess what I'm saying is that it is a
vice.
It's an addiction. It's a vice.
Oh, and he'll admit
I'm not saying
that.
it's a disease, but it's a vice. And I'm glad he got help for it.
Yeah. Now with gambling, you can win. Right, and I'm sure he won a lot of bets, and that's what constantly feeds the beast.
I'm gonna say, you show me someone who bets all the time.
Eventually, the house is probably going to win that.
That's why
That's why the report is that he's lost $100 million, like $100 million on gambling. Crazy amount.
All of a sudden, live makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, now it makes a lot more sense. Ryan Spilborghs is going to join us here, former MLBer, MLB Network radio host. And he's doing the game tomorrow night for Apple TV. He's going to be in town. I think he's in town already.
Yeah.
Jays Cubs tomorrow night. Here he is, Ryan Spilborghs. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing good. I am in town. I went and checked out the Hockey Hall of Fame with Alex Faust today.
Nice.
So that was fun.
Nice.
Took a tour of the town. I love it. Went running right past Lake Ontario. It was cool. I love Toronto.
All right, so you're a runner when you get into a new city kind of guy. That's a different lifestyle.
Well, it's the easiest way to go check out, what's going on around town. I get to see all the construction. I get to see some of the sights and sounds.
Great way to see a city.
There is a lot of construction, isn't there?
Yeah, you guys are rocking and rolling. I don't think I've ever shared this with you guys before, but when I was 15 years old, my family, we made a trip. And we saw the Cooperstown. We went to Cooperstown in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Then we went and checked out Niagara Falls. And then we came up to Toronto and watched the Pink Floyd concert. And then went up the CN Tower at the time. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I marveled at during that trip was we took a tour of the Rogers Center. And we went up to the spot where Jose Canseco hit the home run. So, I saw one of the seven wonders of the world in Niagara Falls. And at the end of that trip, I was like, damn, I can't believe how far Jose Canseco hit a ball.
That was crazy.
Your parents, we took you to Niagara Falls, and all you're talking about is Jose Canseco's home run.
It's tough, man, to get up to that fifth deck. Like it's I don't think it's only happened like a handful of times.
Yeah.
I feel like Manny hit one up there,
Didn't they paint the seats?
I don't know if they've done that in Toronto. I remember they did that for Ted Williams' home run, didn't they? At Fenway, I think. Which now you look back on it, there's no way Ted Williams hit it that far. There's no way.
Yeah, that one's fake. No, that one's fake. It's got to be fake. I don't think anybody's ever hit it out there. It'll never be hit out there. If you do, it's probably with the golf club and a golf ball.
Yeah, I remember when I was at Fenway, my wife and I, we sat right behind that seat, and I was talking to locals in Boston about it, trying to get the history of it, and they're like, no one really believes he hit it this far. It's impossible. It's so deep into right field. There's no way. But with StatCast now, we got to read on what guys are actually doing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're aware of this, Ryan. rumors and reports of, hey, Babe Ruth hit one 575. There's no way. There's no way that happened 100 years ago.
Although we do have, Reggie Jackson off the light standard in the All-Star game in Detroit.
Okay, we have visual evidence of that. Cecil Fielder hitting bombs at a Tiger Stadium.
I called a game once. Mo Vaughn hit a ball that, I think it was rising as it hit the upper deck in old Yankee Stadium.
Right.
I don't
know.
I usually throw the red flag on all those. And I do get upset when I'll see a John Carlos let's be honest here, any of these old time, and I'm not trying to be offensive towards old baseball, but Babe Ruth being a top 5 athlete of all time is a joke to me, because I was he wasn't an athlete. He was exceptional as a pitcher. He was exceptional as a hitter. There's no question, but he would not be the poster, drinking bourbon and hot dogs at 10 a.m. for breakfast as the beacon of, hey, this is what true athleticism looks like. So I think the result of Babe Ruth is amazing. And we owe a lot of gratitude to Babe Ruth. But we're also talking about him competing without any African Americans or any Latin Americans or any other Japanese born players. So I'm come on, save it. And just like I say all the time, when I see somebody like a John Carlos Stanton or an Aaron Judge or some of these guys that are freakish athletes that have trained for the last 20 years of their life, and they run into a baseball that's being thrown at 95 to 99 miles an hour, and they hit a ball that only travels 497 feet. And I'm come on, man. You telling me that the more tightly wound baseball in today's game versus the rag ball back in the 1920s and 30s, where guys are throwing maybe 85, maybe harder, that went further back in the day than today. I'm come on, stop. Just stop and can we? I don't know.
It's not possible. No, you're right. It's absolutely not possible. I'll tell you what, the Jays could use Babe Ruth when there's runners in scoring position. I'm sure you're doing stats and you're getting set up for the game tomorrow, Ryan. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to watch this team. Every single game, it seems that way. And I get it. They're in a playoff spot. There's a lot of positive things about this team. And if they connect with clutch hitting and runners in scoring position, they very well could be the most dangerous team in the American League. It may get to that point. But it is staggering, their statistics with runners in scoring position, the amount of times they hit into double plays, the amount of times they've had bases loaded and they cannot produce runs. Do you have a reason for this? Do you have any theory on why it's been such a struggle for the Jays all year?
It's funny you say that. So, I do have a lot of stats and stuff, and I guess I'll take you down a little. We'll use Vlad Guerrero as our guinea pig for today. I think what's interesting about Guerrero's season, and as a Jays fan, I picked the Jays before the start of the season, to head to the World Series. I think right now my favorite in the American League is Baltimore. That's a really good team. I don't think anybody will question me when I said at the beginning of the season I had Atlanta as the number one team in the National League. The disparity between the National League and American League is pretty great. There's better teams in the American League overall than the National League. So when I talk about Toronto and I say Toronto's not my favorite, but they're still up there. That's still they're still ahead of teams in the National League. So as much as Toronto might not be playing to a certain level from all the teams that I've seen over the course of this year, and I've already seen Toronto play multiple times, Toronto is still a very, very strong group. So they should be fine if they're playing to their capabilities. Now, what's crazy about Vlad Guerrero, and I know you guys have probably documented this too. So I've looked at, all the different stats. I can give you expected stats, which is part of, the great stat revolution we have in Major League Baseball with technology. But all of his numbers across the board are similar to the last couple of years. He's hitting the ball as hard. The launch angle is normal. He's doing everything that on paper looks right. But the craziest part is he didn't hit a homer at the Rogers Center until June 23rd.
Yeah.
He only has 5 home runs at home. So I wanted to see, all right, well, what the heck is going on here? So I dug a little bit deeper. I started looking at some of the numbers of where he's done, his significant damage. And in 2021, let's just say 4-seam fastballs, right? I'll take a simple stat. I'll take a simple pitch. 4-seam fastballs in 2021, he hit 385, with an 808 slugging percentage. Those are massive numbers, big numbers. This year, off four-seam fastballs, he's hitting 258 with a 443 slug, which basically is telling you he is not hammering the fastball the same way that he used to. And then there's another stat, if you ever want to go baseball savant and really go down the wormhole, there's a swing and take metric. And that metric basically looks at the entire strike zone and pitches outside the strike zone. And then it gives you like a combined score on whether you swing and miss, take a ball, or hit a ball hard, right? Pretty simple to understand. In 2021, Vladimir Guerrero was the best at baseball at it. So all the different quadrants, all the different zones, homers, values, all of it, Vladimir Guerrero ranked number one. The last couple seasons, if you look at who leads number one, they're usually an MVP. So last season it was Aaron Judge. This year right now you see Freddie Freeman, you see Shohei Ohtani, you see Matt Olson, you see Ronald Acuna. This season, Vlad Guerrero is down to 67th. So your best hitter in the lineup, for some reason, is not squaring up baseballs at the same. Even though he's hitting the ball, he's not doing the same amount of damage that he did a couple years ago. Yeah. And then we've pointed out, like, the home runs per game at Rogers Center is 19th worst in baseball this season. And the last couple of years, they've been top five.
So Ryan, let me ask you this. And you were a major league hitter. Shouldn't you be able to hit better with runners in scoring position? I mean, the pitcher presumably will bear down, but has to throw strikes. Wouldn't it make more sense? The Blue Jays are batting .212 this year with runners in scoring position. I think the Yankees are .354. I mean, how do you explain that?
From being on good lineups, and I mean, like, your overall home run numbers this year are down. I think, when Ross Atkins went and acquired Dalton Varsho and Brandon Belt, I think earlier in the year, those numbers were pretty bad, especially when you consider, that Varsho was hitting behind Guerrero to protect him. So, and Varsho was not getting any hits at all. So you get this on occasion. You have pressure, right? Everybody has pressure. But when you're in a lineup that's firing on all cylinders, like a baseball cliche, guys are willing to take walks. They're willing to take certain pitches that aren't quite a pitch that they can handle, and they'll pass the baton. They'll go, okay, like, I'll take my walk. If there's a runner at second base, 2 outs, the guy's pitching, nibbling around me, I can take my walk. Let's put a little more pressure, and hopefully Varsho or Belt or somebody behind me gets it done. The problem is when it happens over and over and over again, and especially if you think you have a really good skill set, then you start to chase. Then you start to get outside the strike zone. Then you start to put a little bit more pressure, and then that pressure gets trickled down. So my argument for Toronto, and especially knowing what they're capable of doing, is they've probably put a ton of pressure on themselves to try to get a hit, which, if you've ever tried to get a hit at the major league level, it's impossible. What you try to do is hit the ball hard. And so you'll hear Schneider or anybody talk about chasing hits. Chasing hits is the worst thing that can happen to a team. So you kind of need to get them back to a spot where they're just worried about, if it's not a strike, I pass the baton, and if I do get a pitch to put a good swing on it, I just try to hit it hard. That would be the best case scenario for the Blue Jays.
Jays Cubs tomorrow night on Apple TV. Ryan Spilborghs, former MLBer, MLB Network radio host, and he's an analyst for Apple TV. He's in town. He'll be at the Dome tomorrow night. It's going to be a fun one. Enjoy it here, and we really appreciate you finding time for us. Thank you for doing this.
Adios.
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 I haven't heard that before. Adios on the way out. I like it.
Californian?
See, that's good stuff, man. We get, no, I don't have anything wrong. There's no issues with, all right, thanks, guys. See you later. Goodbye. You're throwing an adios at me. That keeps me coming back for more, right? It's like a birdie on 18. That gets the juices flowing. A little different extra. I like it.
To use the golf vernacular, maybe with runners in scoring position, maybe they're saying to themselves, don't chunk it.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking that while he was explaining it.
They got bad swing thoughts.
I literally put myself in that spot because I can as a golfer, right? Like, I don't play baseball anymore, but I golf. And I was thinking about it the exact same. When you're trying to make a shot as opposed to just hitting a ball, or you're trying to place a ball 200 yards down the fairway, you can't think that way. You just have to let it rip. Like, you got to go. You got to believe in your mechanics, and
So the beauty of baseball
There's
is
a lot of pressure on them right now.
the best thing about baseball is also the worst thing about it. I've always thought this is that the best thing about it is tomorrow's a new day, right? It's a long year. It's 162 games. Tomorrow's a new day.
Mhm.
The problem is tomorrow's a new day, and what happened today might happen again tomorrow.
Mhm.
And then a bad. I remember Rick Dempsey, the old Baltimore catcher, telling us one time about, don't let a bad game become a bad series, become a bad week, become a bad month, right? Just, you got to break it down.
Yeah.
You got to break it down into small pieces. And then when the piece is over, put it away.
Mhm.
Move on to the next thing.
You got to have confidence.
It's so.
You have to have faith that you'll turn things around.
In a sport where you fail, where the best players fail 70% of the time, where you don't get a hit 70% of the time.
Yeah. It's a daunting task, but
It's actually even when you factor in walks, it's actually even lower than that.
sure.
So I mean, it is a mental grind.
Yeah, it is. That's sports. Like a lot of it is mental.
It really is, and I think the one thing when you're around it is you really see how difficult it is mentally day in and day out to be at that level and to try to stay at that level.
Baseball's such a grind. The Jays are in the midst of a 17-game streak
In 17 days.
17 games in 17 days.
Yeah.
In the height of summer, it's hot. You're
not
traveling.
Yeah. Now is it physically? It's not playing the NFL, which is like a car crash.
No,
but it's mentally. You don't get a mental day off.
Right. And listen, these guys get to the park early, too. Like, first pitch, 7 o'clock, they're there by like 3 o'clock.
They're studying.
Exactly. They're in the cage. They're going over different.
Do you notice now, the cards the players have? Like we saw it last night. Kirk has the pitch card on his wrist.
Right.
The pitcher sometimes has a card.
Sure.
The second
quarterbacks.
The second baseman has a card now, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like everything is so analytically driven, and a lot of baseball is pre-planned in terms of how you're going to approach everybody. Like, exactly how you're going to attack everybody, and likely you're just going 2 times through the order, then we're going to this guy, and then that guy, and then this guy. Like,
and there's a guy in the other team whose sole job it is to find your weakness.
Mm-hmm.
That's his job. He goes through your lineup and finds every guy's weakness.
Yeah. Well, and that's what they say about going from the minors to the majors is you get to the minors, they don't think that way, they don't approach it that way, they don't know you, there's not enough resources. You get to the major leagues, if the book gets out on you that you can't hit a certain pitch, you just get hammered with it constantly. Like it's just got to be so frustrating when you realize the book is out on who you are, what you can't do. Like, that's got to be such a defeating feeling.
So different than the old days. I remember a pitcher telling me when I covered baseball a lot, his catcher would call for a curveball in a tight situation. You know why? Because he couldn't hit one.
Mm-hmm. He couldn't hit one.
He couldn't hit one.
Yeah, he's like, obviously this is a tough thing to hit, so I'll call this.
Now they literally have a binder.
Oh, you know exactly what every single guy in Major League Baseball, what he can hit, what he can't, where in the zone.
Every pitch.
Yeah.
What kind of pitch, what count.
Yeah. Exactly. 3-2 counts, righty on lefty. They know this guy hits, he's hitting 180 if you hit the upper right portion of the zone with a fastball. All right, well, that's what we're going to throw. And if he happens to get it, good for him.
By the way, I got a note from a friend who was watching the Jays game this afternoon. He says that George Springer got tossed, arguing it was a strike.
Yeah, well, that happened with the Yankees and Aaron Boone earlier in the week.
Yeah.
Like when Boone went on his whole rant, which I thought was so embarrassing. Like he is desperate. I get it. The Yankees are desperate. Boone, I think, understands he's on thin ice. And that's his thing. He's an animated guy. Like, I find him somewhat entertaining and interesting, and he's famous for My Guys Are Savages in the Box. That was a couple of years ago. But, like, it was a strike, right? It was a strike. Now Diaz, the ump there, he was having a bad game overall, and I think statistically he hasn't been great this year. But the one that set Boone off was a strike. And what you're saying is the Springer pitch.
Well, now the grappler's chiming in saying,
I disagree vehemently. That was Joe will have it up on screen shortly. That was very clearly below the strike zone.
Well, what is the It looks like it's on the. It kind of paints the.
The graphic says
The graphic suggests
the
it
graphic
kind
says
of
a strike.
paints the line there. Grappler.
I don't know. I think if I think if this was like tennis and we could zoom in on kind of the space between the ball and the strike zone, you would see a tiny, tiny sliver of space.
You know what's amazing is Springer didn't realize he had been tossed. Right, like he said what he said walking away, and he didn't realize that he got tossed, and then Schneider comes flying out, and then Springer's going nuts, and this is what you're going to lose this if you get the robotic strike zone, right? You're going to lose that. You're going to lose.
We lose
personality. You're going to lose John Schneider freaking.
We've lost with tennis. We've lost John McEnroe.
Exactly, snapping.
We've lost even Andy Murray early on before all the challenges. Andy Murray would.
Yeah, he'd give it to the chair ump and the linesman and all that stuff. But like Schneider, Boone, you can't do that with an iPad behind the plate. You can't freak out like that. You just got to accept it's black or white at that point. The robot ump. I don't want to lose that in baseball.
Do we want the robot ump?
I don't. I don't because of this. I'm a big human element guy in sports. It's entertainment. I don't need perfect. I'm not expecting perfect. Who would think perfect can happen?
I think the grappler was looking at that through his Blue Jays tinted goggles.
Yeah, it does. It's low, but I think it's just on the line based on the robotic strike zone.
I don't know.
It's close.
That's like it's close, and listen, the graphic on screen isn't exactly exact.
Sure,
but
you're challenging the graphic now.
I'm challenging
science.
He's challenging Hawkeye. It's like my buddy always insists he doesn't use Waze.
Yeah,
I'm like. He said it doesn't work, but you're arguing with a satellite.
Right.
You're literally arguing with a satellite.
But isn't that's what's going to happen in the future? The robot's an idiot. Like people are still going to snap. The robotic ump is a moron because that was not a strike.
It's a bad robot.
That's like the grappler. That'll be him. Grappler will have 6 beers. He'll be sitting in the stands and yelling at the robot.
Bad robot.
Yeah, you're an idiot, robot. That was a ball, or that was a strike. So maybe actually the human element will still somehow be there because as long as
Grappler's around.
Right. As long as you have like diehard fans and people that want to interpret things through different lens, you're still going to get a very similar reaction. The grappler is snapping about the robotic strike zone. Doesn't believe it's right. That's actually outstanding. No, not buying it. No. I don't think so.
Your machine's broken.
I don't know what to tell you, but that robot's a moron.
Sorry, officer.
Complete idiot.
Sorry, officer. Your radar gun, way off.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be believing those lion eyes of yours because you're an idiot. And that robot ump, stupid. The grappler is protesting the robotic strike zone.
When you throw to break, I am coming in there, guns a-blazing.
Please do. I need to hear more on why you think the robotic strike zone was wrong. That's got to be a first probably in history.
It is.
This actually might be groundbreaking stuff. We have the first human ever to watch a robotic strike zone and say, actually, I don't believe that.
No, hold on. Let's clear this up. I am by no means questioning the robotic strike zone. I am saying that the ball is very clearly below the strike zone.
Okay.
And that whether it's Gord or Gord's buddy.
No, but you were saying that you don't think the graphic's correct.
Yeah,
you did say you don't think the graphic's correct.
JP, you got to find the audio because you said that the graphics are not always right. You were not suggesting that your eyes saw it below the line. You were suggesting that the graphics were not accurate.
I don't recall saying that.
You did say that. You're misremembering.
We got to get to break.
Okay,
we'll review the tape.
We're going to review the tape of the grappler challenging a robotic strike zone. Maybe the first time in human history. Mark Masters coming up as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Mark Masters coming up here in just a moment.
Wow, you guys took it outside. Like you and the grappler took it to the hallway to have this discussion.
Yeah, so something happened on this show about 10 minutes ago. First time in the history of the world where the grappler was arguing balls and strikes with the robotic strike zone.
With a machine.
He doesn't believe the robotic strike zone is actually correct, which is inevitable because this is what you're going to get with fans. Right? It doesn't matter.
Yep.
That, hey, that's a strike according to the robotic ump, right? We have it here. Everyone's working under the same pretenses. No, I'm not buying it. Show some discretion. Bad call. Like it doesn't matter who's behind the plate. Grappler types are going to still freak out.
Grappler types.
And this was...
You all know the grappler type.
We have to review a tape here. You have this, JP? Because grappler, you were coming on... You were saying that your view of the Springer punch-out pitch... that led to Springer getting tossed and then Schneider getting tossed. Based on what you saw, you think it's below the strike zone.
Yes.
The robotic strike zone.
I don't think it's below the strike zone.
You know it.
It is below the strike zone.
Okay. So that was your initial statement. And then when we were going back and forth on it, you really dug yourself a hole because you tried to make the argument that the graphics were actually incorrect.
Yes, because I mean, listen, I don't know exactly what technology is being used for these graphics, but is it the exact same that will be used for the robotic umpires? I would hope not.
Okay, so
but we don't have that answer yet.
You're citing a conspiracy.
Is it the front of the plate?
Zone.
Is it the front of the plate? Is it the back of the plate?
Right.
Is it?
Okay, so let's review the tape and actually, let's get a definitive answer on whether or not the grappler just made the most original argument in robotic strike zone history.
I don't know.
It's close.
That's like, it's close, and I mean, listen, the graphic on screen isn't exactly exact.
Sure,
but
you're challenging the graphic now.
I'm challenging science.
He's challenging Hawkeye.
That is some quality English right there. Isn't exactly exact.
Isn't exactly exact. That's outstanding. So that's it. That's the issue. If your team gets screwed over, it's because the graphics are wrong, right? And whoever programmed the strike zone that day is an idiot and got it wrong.
That's what Kevin Brown in Baltimore saying. It was the graphics.
The
graphics got me. He read the graphic and got it.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault.
That's the biggest problem.
Ron Burgundy. It was a Ron Burgundy situation.
The biggest problem in baseball, apparently, is graphics.
Graphics are really causing a lot of problems.
Not the best.
Not the best. All right, Mark Masters coming up here in a moment. Carlos Alcaraz, center stage tonight.
Yes.
That's as good as get. Andy Murray, I believe.
I've never seen him play. I've not seen Alcaraz play yet. I'm really excited about it.
Yes. Yeah. This is a buzzworthy type night because, again, you got Alcaraz, and his match begins at 7. And then you got Jannik Sinner, who's a young kid, really good player.
Yeah.
He's playing Andy Murray just after that, both on center court. I mean, that's what you're looking for tonight.
And Murray's unseated,
Hanging on.
Yeah.
Hanging on, but still a legend.
Amazing, though, after the hip surgery he's had. Mm-hmm. That's incredible. He's like I think he's one of the first professional athletes who has come back. Nick Backstrom's had the same surgery.
Sure.
But I think Murray was the first to come back from it.
I love it. Third round action tonight up at York University, National Bank Open. We head up there now, catch up with our good buddy Mark Masters. Mark, you got Alcaraz center court tonight. I mean, you've been to this event a lot over the years, and you've seen the big boys play. How would you compare or contrast the kind of buzz and vibe that comes with Alcaraz to that of Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, et cetera, in the past?
Yeah, it's different because those guys were established at least when I saw them, covered them here when the big guys played in Toronto. Like, you knew, everyone's like, okay, we know what's happening here. And Alcaraz no one had seen him in Toronto live. A lot of people are watching him for the first time. He just won Wimbledon. A lot of people, there's a curiosity there to get their eyes on this guy. And there was a buzz. Last night I was here and there wasn't a seat to be had. It was really exciting and everyone was really locked in. It wasn't like a late arriving crowd. Everyone was locked into every point. So there was a different feel to Alcaraz. It feels like you're getting him on the come up, and everyone kind of wants to get on board and see what all the fuss is about. And it wasn't the greatest match, to be honest, between Alcaraz and Shelton last night. Alcaraz was good, but not great, which is maybe to be expected in his first match coming off Wimbledon on the ATP Tour, getting used to the hard courts, getting used to being in Toronto. But it was certainly a great atmosphere, and there was a real buzz that I had not really experienced because, you had experienced the big guys, you'd experienced the Canadians, but there was something different last night.
So Mark, I think, we're both tennis fans, and I think part of the buzz about Nadal, Djokovic, Federer was each other. That was part of the whole thing, was they were part of this triumvirate. And you could cut Andy Murray in there at times as a fourth member of it. Who really does Alcaraz have in front of him? I mean, Djokovic, yes, but he's 36. Like, who are we looking at that's going to be his foil going forward?
Well, Jannik Sinner, maybe. Could be the kind of guy that jumps up here. Casper Ruud lost earlier today, but he's certainly got potential, having been to 3 major finals. But it's like there's no one who's in that realm right now. There's no one that you can say is like anywhere really honestly close to Alcaraz, it feels like. Tsitsipas lost to Monfils here. I just don't know who you point to and say that's going to be the rival for Alcaraz moving forward, because we've been waiting for a long time for someone to kind of jump up and grab the mantle from, the big three, and now it's just really Djokovic, depending on what Nadal does next season. But, Alcaraz was the first guy to kind of best of 5 at Wimbledon on Djokovic's surface, really, his home court, the guy where he'd won 4 in a row, and come out and kind of hold his own and take it from him. That was impressive, and no one else in this up-and-coming generation really has been able to do it. So it remains to be seen. Right now, it just feels like Alcaraz is on his own plane.
With Mark Masters, Milos Raonic lost in straight sets earlier this afternoon to Mackenzie McDonald, but he had been through to the third round, won a couple of matches. He won a match at Wimbledon. What is your understanding of what's happening here with Raonic in terms of is this kind of a last waltz situation for him, battling back from injury, and now he's played and he can sense that accomplishment that he actually got back on the court? Or is there a chance here that he can still play for a couple more years? Like, what is he maybe leading on, or what is he letting you know and the media know about what his plans are for his future?
Yeah, I don't have a great read, and I'm not sure he even knows at this exact moment. He keeps, when he's asked about it, he says he's keeping it short term. When I talked to him the day he came back, he won the match in Netherlands. I asked him, how long is this comeback for? He said he wanted to play Wimbledon. He wanted to play Toronto. Well, he's done that. He's entered in Cincinnati next week. He's excited to play the U.S. Open, he says. And then who knows after that? I asked him, I said, was it farewell today to Toronto? Just like, I think it is, but, until he definitively says that, I don't know for sure. And he says, he left the door open. He said the idea was it was going to be my last Toronto, but I won't know that for sure until later on. It's so far away. Obviously, the men aren't back in Toronto until 2025. So it's hard to get a read on it, to be honest. I mean, after his second round win, he was lobbying John McEnroe to be a captain's pick for the Laver Cup in September in Vancouver. So he's still obviously excited to play other events and keep this thing going. He just took out a top 10 player on Monday night. That had to be an intoxicating feeling to do that at home with the crowd going nuts, a feeling he really hasn't had because he was on the side court at Wimbledon. He hasn't really had that feeling. I wonder if that will motivate him to get going. And you know how these athletes go. He starts thinking, hey, if I can stay healthy, I just beat TFO, and the Aussie Open has always been the Grand Slam where I've won the most matches. Maybe I want to play Indian Wells again. Maybe I want to play Miami again. I don't know. And it's hard to get a read on, but he didn't. All I can tell you is I asked him if this was farewell to Toronto today, and he wouldn't close the door.
Is he healthy?
That's always the question. The body was like it caught up to him today. Clearly, he was playing the third match in 4 days, playing on consecutive days, and he just didn't have it. Like, serve speed was down. He didn't generate a break point. He was broken on his first service game. He was never in the match. It was a bit of a letdown. The crowd was trying to get into it, and Raonic just didn't have anything. He didn't have his game today, and hopefully that's something that will just come as he plays more, right? Like, and he needs to play more to have that ability to be fit enough to go deep into tournaments. He didn't have, he took the medical time out on Monday. He said it was a lower back issue that he's been managing that wouldn't keep him out. It's just something he has to manage. There was no tape that I could see today. He didn't say anything specific in terms of why his serve speed was down today. So you never know. Maybe he'll go to the doctor and something will come up. And that's always the concern with Raonic. But from what I can see leaving this tournament, there's nothing glaring like there was at Wimbledon where the shoulder was an issue and he tore a muscle and even the knee was swelling up. He seemed to be in better shape even having played 3 matches here than he did after Wimbledon.
With Mark Masters. So you're in Toronto with the men. You mentioned the women are in Montreal, and there isn't a lot of Canadian content left, but Leylah Fernandez plays tonight against Danielle Collins, an American. And this is when Leylah usually starts to get cooking leading up to the U.S. Open. We know the magical run she had a couple of years ago. When you look at what's happening on the men's side, the women's side right now, would she be the Canadian that you would think can make the biggest impact at the Open? Is it Shapovalov if he returns to health? Felix has been hurt all year. Bianca's still really struggling. Like, I can't look past Leylah, but it's not like she's had a great year either. Where do you stand on Fernandez and her chances of making noise again at the U.S. Open compared to possibly other Canadians?
Yeah, Canadian tennis is in a bit of a weird spot right now. You had Raonic as the last man standing, where expectations were really there were no expectations coming into this event for him. And Felix is, technically, he is our top-ranked singles player, but he hasn't just lost 7 of 8 here. It's been a really rough stretch for him. So there's no expectations for him. And Shapovalov's out with this knee injury. He just pulled out of Cincinnati. Is he playing the U.S. Open? We don't even know yet. You would have to think he would try to, but maybe he's just going to shut it down for a bit. On the women's side, Andreescu, who we were feeling really good about in Wimbledon, she goes to the third round. She gives Ons Jabeur a really good match, but then she loses her first match in D.C., loses her first match in Montreal. I think if Fernandez or Andreescu get a good draw, they are both capable of doing damage. They both have good memories at the U.S. Open. But, of all the Canadians, men or women, Fernandez and Andreescu maybe are your best bet for the U.S. Open run. It just feels that way right now. If they could get the draw. Fernandez, that was a classic 2021 win she had yesterday against Beatrice Haddad-Maia. First top 20 win since the French Open in 2022 when she made the quarterfinals and then hurt her foot. So that's a really encouraging sign. We'll see. It's raining right now in Montreal, but she got a chance to beat Danielle Collins and could play Swiatek, the number 1 player in the world, tomorrow. So we'll see if she can really build some momentum in Montreal. She made the point earlier this week that Montreal is where she played before she went on a run in New York. So we'll see if she gets the mojo going.
Great stuff, Mark. Enjoy it tonight, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Mark Masters, our Leafs reporter, of course, and tennis reporter up at York University, where you got Alcaraz, Andy Murray, center court tonight. Pretty good ticket to have.
So for you, if I said final round at Augusta or center court men's final at Wimbledon, you'd be at Augusta?
I probably would pick Augusta, but I will say this. I love London with a passion, and it's more focused being center court, where with golf, like it's
going on everywhere.
It's everywhere, and it's like, who am I following? Do I set up at 18, then I got to wait all day? So from a viewing experience, tennis is much better. I'd take
Open,
Wimbledon.
The U.S. Open, I tell people all the time, you get a chance to go. It's theater, unlike now. The sad
you're talking tennis in New York.
The sad part of it is that they've ticketed the big courts now, so you can't court hop as much as you could.
Right.
The court hopping used to be the best part of the U.S. Open.
Right.
Jump around.
You just go wherever you had to go.
Yeah, right. Now, Louis or Ash, Armstrong, the grandstand are all ticketed mostly, so it's hard to jump.
You kind of have to pick which one you're going to.
Yeah, but I mean, I love.
You'd go tennis.
I mean, I've been to the Masters and liked it.
Oh, I haven't. It's the bucket list item for me. I can't wait.
Yeah,
but viewing it's a lot longer. Like the leaders go off.
But to your point, you can't
just follow the leaders the whole day. You're not going to be able to do it, and you got to kind of pick a spot. You don't know when you're going to see stuff. You're going to lose.
I was at the Open Championship one year at St. Andrews, 2000, and after I finished covering Mike Weir, sat in the road hole grandstand all day. Saw 2 birdies all day.
Wow! Did Tiger birdie that day?
No,
he won it.
Mark Calcavecchia did.
There you go. All right. TSN 1050 is once again delivering backpacks filled with school supplies to support local families. It's all part of our 9th annual Back to School Backpack event happening Wednesday, August 23rd. This year's event is presented by Healthy Planet, together in partnership with the Children's Breakfast Clubs. 1,010 young students will receive the tools they need to succeed before the school bell rings in September. For all of the details, please head to tsn1050.ca. TSN1050.ca. We'll come back and wrap up a busy afternoon. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, the Jays flying back home. Cubs in town this weekend. Jose Bautista, level of excellence on Saturday. That's going to be fun.
I hope he flips the mic.
Got to flip the mic.
If he
that's
flips
the
mic.
Gord Miller move.
I'm like, people
that's
are
a big move for you.
People are texting me about it. People are calling.
Yeah, you own that, man. You offered up that idea to Jose Bautista yesterday.
He seemed warm to it, didn't he? Like he seemed kind of.
I think it really caught him off guard, and then it did sound as if he was like, "That's a really good idea."
I gotta ask now. Do you not think that he was planning to do that anyways?
I don't know. I mean, now
you know what?
Now the grappler is going to
be like
claim that if it happens, it wasn't actually your idea.
Why you gotta be like that? Huh?
I just
his reaction though. His reaction was it sounded like he hadn't thought of it.
Yeah.
But maybe he just wasn't expecting you to ask the question.
Yeah, but don't you think if he had thought of it, grappler, he'd say, "Oh, I'm doing that." Like, wouldn't that be his response for like, "Oh, don't worry about it, I'm on it," as opposed to like, because it sounded as if he was really like kind of caught off guard by that suggestion, And it really was something that he appreciated.
Now the grappler wrecked it.
But now it's over because now if he does it, he was thinking about it anyway.
The grappler wrecked it for me.
Yeah.
He argues with technology. It's
yeah.
I'm
It was
disappointed.
premeditated. Batista's smarter than you, Gord, and he was already thinking of it. If he does it, it was his idea.
And if he doesn't do it, it's because he hated my idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was going to do it, but then he stopped because you wanted him to do it.
Or he heard about it, but that's a dumb idea. I'm never doing
Now
it.
I'm really not
I
going to do that.
can't win here.
Yeah, I wonder how like the game ops would feel about that. Flipping a mic. You got to just live with it, right? It's Jose Bautista, level of excellence.
Got another one.
He flips the mic, you got to accept it. Yeah. We'll see. It's going to be a fun weekend. All right, Gord, good seeing you, man.
You too. I'll see you Monday.
Catch you Monday, right?
Tuesday. Yeah, I'll be here
Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Dave Feschuk will be in here tomorrow. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for all the help. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. Radio, TV, podcast, web. Find the podcast wherever you download your podcast. The iHeart Radio app as well, right?
I got that.
Got to get it. Got to have it. That's where you can find the podcast in tsn1050.ca. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.